Hello, I'm Maayan Shuval,
And I'm Kristina Woodard.
and we are here with Alfred, who is an immigrant to the United States from England. So, Alfred, can you tell us a bit about your background, where you were born, where you lived?
What school you went to, your education experience, and why you immigrated to the United States.
I was born in Liverpool, England, a long, long time ago. And I have a degree in politics from Liverpool University and a master's in computer science from London University. And I lived in England until 1983. I got married in December, and no, wait a minute, hang on, let's get this right. I got married in July of 1983, I think, if I can remember correctly, and in January the 28th, 1986, we emigrated to Israel. We lived on my wife's kibbutz for a couple of years. During most of that time, I worked on the kibbutz. For the latter part of the time, I found a job in my industry and worked there near Haifa. After a while, we left the kibbutz and moved to a small town nearby, and I continued working in Haifa. I did my very extensive military service. And shortly after that, I was offered a job by a small American company in the Seattle area called Microsoft. So we decided to move to America, and we never intended to stay here more than about 4 or 5 years. But as things developed, we decided to stay longer. I'm in the software industry. Certainly do it for money. There was a point at which I didn't need to work for money, but that has long since passed. So I, like most people, work for money. I also tend to enjoy what I'm doing. Less than 50% of the time I've been in the States, I worked for Microsoft. I worked for them for 8 3/4 years. Then took a break for about 5 years. During which time we spent 2 years back in England, and I spent a year studying art history.
How does your work affect your personal life? Does your work take up a lot of time during the day? Do you get to spend lots of time?
Well, yeah, I spend the days at work.
Do you get to spend any significant time with your family or with friends?
Not during the day.
I mean throughout the day, not just daylight hours.
I don't understand. I work basically 9 to 5.
Okay.
Any socializing is of the evening. Israel was, any job in any country, you basically work during the day, right?
Right.
And in the evenings you socialize, or not. We lived, as you know, several places in Israel. I lived a lot of different places in England. I spent my working life really in England, in London, and I lived in many different places in London. I lived north, south, east, west London. I spent a couple of years living down the southeast near Greenwich and travelling every day to West London around Notting Hill. And that was about an hour and a half's journey each way. These days my commute is, obviously my shortest commute was when I was at Microsoft. These days my commute is I take a bus into Seattle. So that takes about 35 minutes plus the odd few minutes on either side, and waiting for a bus. In Israel I had, when I worked on the outskirts of Haifa, I'd usually take a bus in, and that would go up through the mountains, through the hills, the Carmel Mountains, up to Zichron Yaakov, a lovely little town, and then turned down to go to the coast, going down the mountains along the Mediterranean until I got to work. That was my commute.
Right.
It isn't all bad.
Right. And do you consider yourself in the States friends with your coworkers and your employers?
With my coworkers, yes. Yeah. I'm very friendly with them, not excessively so. We don't. People tend to be rather private here.
Was it the same in England, or was it a different type of relationship?
Quite often, yes. It varies from company to company. Certainly when I was at university it was more sociable. But that was a different environment, as you know, though I did work in university as well. But most people tend to have a degree of friendship with people from work, which is very nice. The only problem that I would have with that here is that most of them tend to live in Seattle. The differences are not between the countries so much as between the companies. There's a huge difference between different companies in the same country. Whereas the norm on the East Coast and in England would be usually to dress up more. The thing I can say is, without any equivocation, the coffee in this country sucks.